If you're applying for Social Security disability and you've heard the term grid rules, but you're not sure what that means or whether it applies to you, you're not alone. This is one of the most confusing parts of the disability process, and it's also one of the most misunderstood. If you're new here, my name is Maria Bermudez, and I'm the managing attorney of Disability Advocacy Group. We help people secure Social Security disability and long-term disability benefits. Today, I'm going to explain what the grid rules are and how Social Security uses them and how they might apply to your case. The grid rules are a set of guidelines that Social Security uses to decide disability cases when someone does not meet a medical listing. In other words, if your condition is serious but doesn't automatically qualify under Social Security's listing of impairments, the grid rules may still help you get approved. The grid rules focus on a few key factors. Social Security looks at your age, your education, and your past work experience. They look at your physical and mental limitations. They combine all of that information to decide whether they believe that you can realistically adjust to other work. Age is one of the most important factors in the grid rules. Social Security treats age very differently than most people expect. If you're under 50, Social Security generally assumes that you can adapt to new types of work even if you can't do your past job anymore. That doesn't mean that you won't qualify under 50, but the grid rules are much less favorable. Once you reach age 50, things begin to shift. Social Security recognizes that learning a new job becomes more difficult as people get older, especially when they have serious medical limitations. At ages 50 and 55, the grid rules become progressively more favorable, depending on your work history and your restrictions. Education also matters under the grid rules, but this is where there is an important change that has happened that some people don't know about. In the past, Social Security considered whether someone could speak in English. That used to be a formal factor in grid rule decisions. Today, the ability to speak in English by itself is no longer a deciding factor under the grid rules. However, that does not mean that language is irrelevant in every case. Language can still matter depending on the type of work Social Security believes you could do. If a job, according to the Department of Labor's description, specifically requires a strong ability to communicate in English, that can still be a real issue. I've personally handled cases where this distinction mattered. In fact, within the last year, I had a federal court remand based on this exact issue, where the language requirements tied to specific jobs were not properly considered. So while English proficiency alone is no longer part of the grid rules, language can still matter when it directly affects whether a person can realistically perform certain jobs. Your past work experience is another critical part of the grid rules. Social Security looks at jobs you've done in the past 5 years and classifies them by physical demand and skill level. Some jobs are considered unskilled, others semi-skilled or skilled. They also look at whether the skills from your past work can transfer to other, easier jobs. Transferable skills are often where grid rule cases are won or lost. If Social Security believes your past job skills transfer easily to lighter work, they may deny your case. If your skills do not transfer or your medical limitations prevent you from using them, the grid rules may support an approval. All of this ties back to your residual functional capacity, or what we call RFC. This is Social Security's assessment of what you can still do on a sustained full-time basis. That includes how long you can sit, stand, walk, lift, concentrate, stay on task during normal work days. The grid rules only help when these limitations are clearly supported by medical evidence. Here's a key point that people misunderstand. The grid rules do not automatically apply just because you reach a certain age. Social Security only looks at the grid rules after they decide that you cannot perform your past work. If they believe you can still do one of your previous jobs, the grid rules won't even be considered. This is also why many grid rule cases are denied at the initial stages but approved later at a hearing. Judges often take a more realistic look at age, work history, and transferable skills and job requirements, especially when vocational experts testify about whether jobs truly exist for someone with your limitations. If you're over 50, have a limited work background, and a serious medical restriction, the grid rules may be one of your strongest parts of your case, but they only work when your medical evidence, your work history, and your limitations all line up. Understanding how the grid rules work can help you avoid common mistakes like overstating your abilities or assuming Social Security will automatically apply them in your favor. If you're not sure whether the grid rules apply to you, that's completely normal. These cases are very individualized, and small details can make a big difference. If this video helped you to better understand the grid rules or how they might apply to your situation, make sure to subscribe for more clear and practical guidance about Social Security disability. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.